Okay, so welcome to our inaugural Thursday Night Pirkei Avos here. Okay, yay. We will be, like I just mentioned now before the recording started, we're going to tentatively try this for this time once a week, and we're going to keep it going through September at the very least, and then we'll reevaluate after Sukkot and just see, because this is also a new schedule for me this year, and I would love to be able to give this year and my Friday morning shiur, but we'll see what my course load is like this year. One change that I want to do this year, which I'm going to try to announce through all my shiurim, is my high school students know that in high school I would start classes exactly on time, and for some reason Zoom etiquette somehow dictated that like we wait for people to come. But I think I'm going to start off the year starting on time exactly. So I'll show up like 5 minutes early in case you want to like chit chat or whatever, and then we'll start on time. Okay. Another announcement is that for tonight only, usually this year is going to be scheduled to be from 8 until 9:15 and then give us like room to go overtime. I didn't realize that I'm using Yeshiva's Zoom account right now, and I didn't realize we only have one Zoom account. And Rav Pesach, I didn't realize is starting his shiur tonight, so I need to end at exactly 8:59, which also means that I made an executive decision to like, I think we're probably going to do like the setup of the analysis today, maybe like bounce around a few ideas, but I think we're going to save like the main ideas for next week. Okay. And since I've never taught Pirkei Avos to this group before, I don't want to state like Mishlei where we're going to do one pasuk every week and say we're going to do one Mishnah every week in Pirkei Avos because every Mishnah is different, every group is different. So we're not in any rush. Okay. That's the plan. All right. So since we have to end a little bit early, and since I wasn't sure what this group would be like, I hope no one objects if we do a quick recap of an intro to Pirkei Avos, because we're all coming from different perspectives. I know Leah and Ayala have seen this intro before because I'm literally using the one from Lomdeha. I don't remember when Rifki and Dino were in my class, if this is the same one, but it'll be a review for you guys anyway. And we're not going to do PowerPoints for everything, but just for this one because it was a Lomdeha one. Okay, so very short overview. And again, the style of a shiur, feel free to interrupt with questions or like raise your hand using the Zoom thing if you want to reserve a spot in the line. Okay, so intro Pirkei Avos from Lomdeha, September 2020. So the basic info is the title is called Pirkei Avos. Now, why do we call it Avos? Oh, sorry. Avos is the official title. Some people call it Pirkei Avos, chapters of the fathers. You'll see some English books call it ethics of the fathers. But what's with the Avos? Why do we call it Avos? And there might not be one answer. I'm just curious what you've heard.
The Masorah aspect of it.
Yes. Okay. So I think the most conventional answer is just the Masorah aspect of it. So the Miuchas L'Rashi, now it's Miuchas L'Rashi because Miuchas means attributed to Rashi. There's something sketchy going on with the commentary of Rashi on Pirkei Avos. If you look at like an ordinary version, you'll find Rashi there. But if you look at critical editions, you'll find several different versions of Rashi. I'm not clear on what the story is. This might not actually be Rashi. It might be like something that was like labeled as Rashi. But whoever it is, this idea is true. I'm just going to read this in English here. They are called the chapters of the fathers because they were arranged here, there were arranged here the Divrei Avos Harishonim, the words of the early fathers who received the Torah from one another, such as Moshe, Yehoshua, the Zkanim, each from one another, until the Anshe Knesset HaGedolah, the men of the Great Assembly, and Shammai and Hillel, Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai and his students, and Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi informed us how proper their actions were and how they warned the members of their generation and guided them on the straight path. Likewise, it is proper for every wise person to warn the people in their generation and to teach them the upright path. So when Leah said the Masorah thingy or aspect, if you look through the first chapters of Pirkei Avos, it highlights the Masorah of who received it from who. So famously, Moshe kibul Torah Sinai, Moshe got Torah from Sinai, Umasarah liYoshua, Yoshua leZakanim, Uzakanim leNavim, uNavim Masaruh lAnshe Knesset HaGedolah. Those are the groups. Then it goes by individuals. Shimon HaTzadik hayami sheyari Knesset HaGedolah. Shimon HaTzadik was one of the last members of the Knesset HaGedolah. Hu haya Omer, and then he says his teaching. Then next, Antignos ish Socho kibel mishimon HaTzadik. So Antignos got the Torah Sheba'al Peh from Shimon HaTzadik, Hu haya Omer, and then it goes on through the generations, and this continues through the first couple of chapters. Okay, so plain shot is Pirkei Avos because it is the fathers of the Masorah who passed it down, and this is where we get some of the information about how the Masorah was passed down. Okay, again, interrupt me if you have any questions. This is kind of just a brief overview. I don't want to dwell on this. Okay, what we already said this. What type of text is this? Is Pirkei Avos? it is Mishnah. Okay. And it's a Masechta, which is a volume of a tractate of Mishnah, which is called Avos. Let's see how many of you guys remember this from Torah Ped days. What is the Mishnah? Awkward.
The first written down Torah Ped, which was compiled by Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi, a compilation, I guess.
Yeah. Okay, good. Yeah, exactly. So first, and I added the word authoritative written compendium of Torah Ped because who else wrote Torah Ped before Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi, and in what form?
God.
Nope.
In speaking
In fact,
form?
God said, "Don't write it." But there was
Is it
one
Midrash?
Midrash is a is similar to Torah Ped in that it was handed down orally and then written down eventually. But I don't think this is a trick question. The answer is that individual chachamim who were passing it down were allowed to take private notes. Okay, but there was no official standardized text. And what Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi did is he gathered all of the notes, which we call, Mishnayos and Brisos, and he included a bunch of them in an official compendium called the Mishnah, and then other ones he included in the outside text called Brisos. So it was written down, just not in an official text. It was meant to be learned by memory and by speech, and there was no standardized text. So he made a standardized text, and it was designed to be a teacher's handbook to prevent the Mishnah from being forgotten. And I say teacher's handbook because it was not meant to be studied and learn from scratch. Like, it was meant as an aid for teachers to be able to reconstruct Torah Ped. It's like lecture notes that you take when you're going to give a lecture. Okay. All right. What is a Masechta? We said that already. One of the 63 volumes of Shas. Okay. And Avos is one of them. And when was it written? I forgot if you said this, Ayala. When was it compiled? Approximately?
200.
Yeah, 200 CE. Okay, good. All right, you still remember. All right, now Pirkei Avos, you'll see in any book of Pirkei Avos, you'll see that there are 6 chapters, but in actuality, there are only 5 chapters. Okay, the 6th one is actually a bonus chapter, which they call Perek Kinyan HaTorah, which is a combination of different brisos with these outside texts, and then statements of Amoraim who came later, which were added on. And the reason why it was a 6 perek, anyone know why a 6th perek was added? It's a weird thing to do.
Because they wanted to do it during the weeks between, or is that just like a
No, you're right. You're right. Yeah.
In Pesach and Shavuos?
Yeah. So, and I know your question in your mind is, well, aren't there 7 weeks between Pesach and Shavuos? Right. Yeah. So I think the minhag is to start doing it after Pesach is over, and then to read one perek of Pirkei Avos each Shabbos, and then you get to the end and you got one more Shabbos, and so they added on this other thing. So it's a legitimate text. It's just not on the same level as Pirkei Avos, and that's why you will not find commentaries on it like you do on the first 5, because it wasn't actually part of Pirkei Avos. Okay, all right. So now I hope this doesn't bring back traumatic memories for my AP English students. So we did. I gave this in Lomdeha when we were doing intro to AP English. So this is a little technique we called SOAPs, where you look at any text and you define the subject, the occasion, the audience, the purpose, and the speaker. Okay, I'll explain these as we go. I just didn't bother to change the PowerPoint. So let's look at the Rambam's intro to Pirkei Avos, which is in 2 places. One is in his intro to the Mishnah, and the other is in his intro to Shmona Prakim. So in the Mishnah, intro to the Mishnah, he says, once Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi completed everything that the judges need, he began with Avos. I meant to do this. Hold on. Let me show you where to find Avos. Okay. If you look at, let me share whole screen. If you look at Al HaTorah, which of course is where you should go for all your Torah needs. So there are the 6 orders of the Mishnah. You go to Nezikin, which is about damages and court cases. And Avos is, in our numbering, Avos is after Avodah Zarah. Okay. In the Rambams, I believe in the Rambams, it was after Sanhedrin. Okay. And the Rambam right now is in the midst of explaining, oh, was I sharing the screen? I don't know.
Yeah, you were.
Oh, I was. Okay, good. All right. The Rambam is in the midst of explaining why, what the order is of the Masechtos. Okay. So he says, once Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi completed everything that the judges need, he began with Avos. He did this for 2 reasons. The first is to inform us of the truth of the oral transmission and the correctness of the tradition transmitted from generational cohort to generational cohort. Therefore, it is proper to honor the wise man and to place him in an honorable position because he is a bearer of the tradition. So basically, to give a record of how the Masorah was passed down from the leader to leader until Yehuda Hanasi. Oops. I went back. Okay. Then he says the second reason why this comes after Sanhedrin is to teach us through this tractate the ethics of each of the sages, peace be upon them, so that we may learn from them the best character traits. Judges are in greater need of these than any other person, for if ordinary people do not learn musar here meaning character refinement, not rebuke, no harm is done to the multitudes, right? If like, in other words, let's say you have like an average person who just doesn't perfect their character, the most people they're going to hurt is the people around them, okay, which is bad, but it's not a disaster for Klal Yisrael. He says, but if the judge is not ethical and disciplined, he would be harmed and also harm the people with his damaging behaviors. Okay. There was a, hold on just a second. Oh, no, not yet. Okay. Then he goes on and says, hold on just 1 second. I had another point that I was going to make, and I thought it was based on the Rambam, but it wasn't. Okay. I could have sworn the Rambam said this. I thought he said, and I'm not going to look for it now, that you see from here that the people who passed down the Masorah had perfected midos and were not just like intellects and jerks, and that's another important idea, is that in Torah, we don't just value, even though the whole thing is based on knowledge and Talmud Torah Keneged Kulam, we hold that knowledge has to affect your actions. And if it doesn't affect your actions, then there's something severely lacking in your knowledge. And there's a Mishnah, there's Mishnayos and Avos about this, about how like if you learn Chachma, you don't have Yira, then that's a bad thing. And the reason why I was going to bring this up is I had this shocking experience in the spring. I was reading this book on like it was some by some Buddhist monk, and it was about like anger or something like that, so I'm reading it, I was like, oh, these are good ideas, and then I decided halfway through the book to like look at Wikipedia at the author. Turns out this Buddhist monk was a violent alcoholic, and not to say that like I'm not judging him for being an alcoholic, but I was like, oh, and not only that, but I think he got into like drunk driving accidents and stuff, and like it shifted the way I viewed his teachings, and I stopped reading the book, not because his ideas were bad, but like I feel like there's something incongruent when you're reading a book about like controlling your emotions from someone who like had problems with his own like character, and like and it wasn't just alcoholism, it was a bunch of other stuff also. So the reason why I'm bringing that in now is that there's a halacha actually. You're only supposed to learn from a teacher with good midos. And if a teacher has good midos, even if he or she has really, really valuable Torah, you're not supposed to learn from them. And so this is another, I thought the Rambam says this explicitly, but that it's implied in what he's saying, but that the sages who passed down the Masorah had stellar midos, and those are the types of people who we're learning our Torah from. Okay, so that's the Rambam's first intro. Second intro is so Shmona Prakim is the Rambam's introductory essays to Avos, and then this is the intro to Shmona Prakim. So this is like the intro to Avos, okay? And he says, and this is really where we get my theory of Avos from. It's not my theory, but this is my working like approach. The sages, peace be upon them, have already said, whoever wishes to be a chassid here meaning one who goes beyond the letter of the law, not to be confused with capital CH chassid, a member of the chassidim, right? So this is like a pious person, or I think in Mishlei last year, we coined the term, you have tzaddik who's righteous, and chassid is like, we had a term for it. I think extra righteous is the term we came up with, which is a more accurate term, is you're doing righteousness and then going beyond that. So Haiman Debai Lemehabe Chasida L'Kaim Mili de Avos. Whoever wishes to be a chassid should fulfill the words of Avos. And then he says we have no level higher than chasidus except for prophecy, and chasidus is what brings one to prophecy. As they said, chasidus mevia lidei ruach hakodesh. Chasidus brings a person to ruach hakodesh. And then he says, it is clear from their words that living by the ethical teachings of this tractate brings a person to prophecy, since this tractate includes a great portion of good character traits. Okay, end of Rambam. So now let's go to our soaps and fill it in. Okay, so what, according to the Rambam, is the subject of Pirkei Avos? What's it about?
How to be a chassid.
How to be a chassid. Okay, right. So it's musar. Oh, sorry. You know what? Your answer is more precise. Oh, no. You know what? Sorry. What I did was I allocated that to purpose. Okay. The subject matter is ethical perfection. Okay. Perfection of midos. Okay. What was, and this is a trick question now, what caused it to be written down? The Rambam didn't say, but we went over this earlier in our talk.
Torah Shabbat Peh was in danger of being forgotten.
Exactly. So this was part of Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi's effort to preserve Torah Shabbat Peh. The urgency was that Torah Shabbat Peh was going to be forgotten. There was a danger of people also losing respect for the Bali Masorah, because they if you view them as not ethical, then people, why should I trust these people? And then the Rambam also says, I kind of gave it away here, that there was a danger. There's always a danger in every generation that judges will become corrupt, and so the judges need to study ethics in order to preserve the society. Okay. So who is the immediate audience? Who is the book written primarily for?
I just raised my hand. I don't know why I raised my hand.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, go ahead.
Not like physically. It's been a while. I feel like I remember learning in high school that it's for people like that are already on a higher level. So it's not necessarily like a book for the masses, or at least that's what we've said.
Right. We did say it in high school. So what term did we just use now?
Like,
a chassid. Okay, right. So it is, sorry, I forgot so the profession, the role it's for is for judges, but the level of perfection is for people who are on a high enough level to become to work on becoming a chassid. Okay, that's the Gemara Haiman de Ba'alim Have Chasida. Someone who wants to be a chassid doesn't just mean that you aspire one day to be a chassid. It means that you're working on becoming a chassid. And you see from the Rambam, the way he said it is the next level after this is nevuah, right? So like, this is the penultimate level. This is like you have pre-calc and calculus. This is like pre-nevuah. Okay. So very, very high level. Okay. But we learn in not in Pirkei Avos, not in PA, but in AP English, that there are always two kinds of audiences for a text. There's the immediate audience who it's written for, and then the mediated audience is people who the author might have had in mind that would read this and still gain from it, but even though they're not the intended audience. So the mediated audience is ordinary people who also can benefit from these teachings. Okay, but I made this point in high school, and I want to make it again here. My go-to text for working on perfection is Mishlei, right? Mishlei is explicitly written for simpletons, youths, chachamim, and nevonim. Okay, so a wide range of people, and not for a chassid. Avos is written primarily for a chassid, and if you're going to get other stuff from it, you're getting it as a secondary audience. And the reason why this is important is because you'll find certain teachings in Avos that are expressing an ideal that the average person should not necessarily strive for at that point in their development. So like when we learn Mishlei, you have to ask, who is the audience of this pasuk, meaning who is this particular teaching oriented towards? So too in Avos, you have to ask that, and you have to ask, is this just for a person on a high level and the rest of us should just look at it and aspire to that? Or is this really for everyone equally, but just more important for the people on the high level? And so we have to really keep that in mind when we learn. Okay. Purpose is as
I have a question.
Yes.
This might be a little bit off topic, but I'm in the middle of learning Hilchos Deos from the Rambam, and he talks about a chassid as someone whose like character traits are like more to one side, not in the middle.
Yeah.
And he kind of implies that's like a negative thing, but here he's saying chassid is like a really high level. So I don't know, is it separate or?
So in Deos, he doesn't say it's a negative thing. He says that it is. There's two levels in Hilchos Deos. There's chacham, whose traits are in the middle, and then there's chassid, who's always leaning towards one side, and chassid is higher than chacham in the Rambam system.
Okay, so it's better to be leaning towards one side, or I could talk about it later also.
So it's better to be. I think maybe the source of the question is that the Rambam holds the extremes are bad, and you should be in the middle. And so now you would think that if a chassid is aiming slightly towards one side, then it's leaning towards bad. But I'm going to boil down like a couple weeks worth of my shiur from 2021 into like one sentence here. But this is what I call the midos drift, which is that there's the actual middle point, but then you're always drifting in one way. So the chassid has to correct for that drift in order to prime himself to be in the right way. So the physical analogy is when you have a shopping cart and you have that wheel that is like making the shopping cart constantly turn to the left side. So you have to kind of like overcorrect on the other way. In midos, let's say like when it comes to indulgence or restraint, most people are going to tend towards indulgence. So if you just try to stay at the middle, you're going to slip towards indulgence. So the chassid is always trying to tweak and go a little bit more towards restraint so that he ends up in the middle.
Okay,
that's my
thank you.
working
That makes
understanding.
sense. That makes
Yeah.
sense. Okay.
Okay, good. Now,
Okay,
again,
thanks.
this is my memory from like February or March 2021, and it was a doozy of a Rambam. Like working through the Rambam Hilchos Deos, there's a lot of stuff in there. You also have to go to Shemona Perakim. So like next time I learn this, I could totally change my theory, but that's my recollection of my theory. Yeah. Okay. The purpose is to become a chassid and to prepare people for nevuah, and also to reinforce the ethos, the character of the Bali Masorah, to strengthen the authority of Torah Sheba'al Peh. Okay, who are the speakers? The speakers are the individual prominent Tanaim who are in charge of Torah Sheba'al Peh. So, again, we just saw Shimon HaTzadik Haya Omer, Hillel Haya Omer, Rabbi Kiva Haya Omer. So it's the individual Tanaim. And this is something that like I don't think is a stretch, even though I've never seen it written explicitly. Each author's statement was something that characterized his life as indicated by the introductory phrase, Hu Haya Omer. In other words, ordinarily in a Mishnah, it says Rabbi Meir Omer, but in Pirkei Avos, it'll say Rabbi Kiva Haya Omer. This is something he used to say a lot. So presumably, I'm sure he said a lot of stuff. So presumably they took the things that most characterized like his important teachings. Okay. So that is our intro to Pirkei Avos, I think. Yeah, that's it. Okay. Any questions on the intro? That wasn't too long. I hope this was useful. Okay. So let's start. Okay. Now you may be wondering why I picked chapter 3. Okay. The answer is I forgot volume 1 at home in Seattle. Okay. And I only had my volume 3. And then afterwards I made up a reason. And the made up reason is I feel like you're going to be in other Pirkei Avos classes that start with the beginning, and you're only going to get so far. So like, why not start with number 3? And then the other made up reason, which actually happens to work out as a good reason, is this is the Mishnah in Pirkei Avos, one of the mishnayos most associated with tshuva. Okay. And I actually forgot to put the source here, but we'll see that bli neder today. Okay. So let's take our time with this. The goal for today will be to get the questions and then start developing initial theories. Okay, but we'll first start by translation. Okay, Akavya ben Mahalalel Omer. Okay, so Akavya, son of Mahalalel, says. Okay, after my whole spiel on who Haya Omer, this is not a Haya Omer one, but whatever. Okay, so he says, and by the way, props to Mahalalel. There are a bunch of good Tana names that people just don't name their kids. When was the last time you met a kid named Akavya or Mahalalel? Mahalalel is a cool name, right? But whatever. All right, alas. So he says, Histakel b'shlosha devarim bi'ata bali de'avera. Anyone know what histakel means?
Look or gaze.
Yeah, gaze I think is a better translation, right? And the reason why I say gaze is I don't know if any of us ever talked about this in high school, but I feel like people know this halacha. They think they know this halacha that it's usher. People think it's usher to look at a rainbow, right? And I always have to correct people, high schoolers who say this, and say, no, it's not usher to look at a rainbow. It's usher to be mistakel b'keshet, to stare at a rainbow, And then someone inevitably asked the question, what's the difference between looking and staring, or like how long does that have to be? And I said, good litmus test is pretend you're a rainbow and there's some creepy guy on the street. You'll know the difference between when he's like looking at you versus staring at you. When you get to that point, then you're into the Isser territory. Okay, so gaze I think is the best English word. Okay, gaze at and actually we have to modify it. When you're talking about the sensory, it's gaze, but when you're talking about the mind, it would be contemplate, which is gazing with your mind's eye. Okay, literally gaze. Okay, bishlosh dvarim, at 3 things. V'iyata bali de'avera, and you will not come to transgression. Okay, da me'ayin basa, know from where you came. Okay, there's a fancy way to say it. You could say know whence you came, but no one says whence. Know from where you came, ul'ana taholech, and where you are going. And before whom with the capital H, you will ultimately give I guess, litain, be given judgment and reckoning. Okay. Now he could have stopped there, but thankfully he spells it out. He fills in each of the things. Me'ayin basa, where did you come from? Mitipa strucha, from a putrid drop. Okay, and that's talking about of semen. Okay. Ulanat holech. Oops, sorry, I did not type that in. Where did you come from? And where are you going? Limukom afar rima v'salea, to a place of dirt, maggots, and worms. Okay, i.e. the grave. And before whom will you be given judgment and reckoning? Before the King of Kings, the transcendent one, who is the source of all good. And if you're wondering, why didn't you say the Holy One, blessed is he? It's because I want, I think people say that and they don't really like process it. So Kedusha means transcendence of physicality. Baruch Hu means the source of all good. So when you see the name HaKadosh Baruch Hu, I think it helps to translate it in your mind as the one who transcends the universe and all physicality, and yet is the source of all the good that we have in the universe. That's like the idea of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Okay, there you have the Mishnah that we're focusing on. Okay, yes, Vanessa.
I don't know if this is the place for it. How do you get the source of all good from Baruch Hu?
I'll give a quick answer. So Baruch means blessed, okay? And the many Mefarshim, oops, Norton alert. Many Mefarshim say, ask the question like, how can you, like when we say Baruch Atah Hashem, blessed are you Hashem, how can we bless God? So it says, it does not mean that we are blessing God. We mean that he is the source of blessing, in the same way that when you say Rahum, God is Rahum, that he is the ultimate repository of mercy. He's the Baal HaRachamim. So here he is the source of bracha. And bracha, if you look up the word bracha in any of the Mefarshim on Bereshis Perek Aleph. I don't know about any of the Mefarshim, but I know Ibn Ezra says this. The definition of bracha is tosefes tova, is increase of good. So Baruch means he is the source of increased good. Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I struggle with translating that one a lot.
Yeah. Okay, good. I have, if you remind me afterwards, I did an experimental series in the beginning of 2020 called 5-Minute Kavana, where I did, I think like 13 5-minute shiurim on the phrase Baruch Atah Hashem Elokeinu Melech HaOlam. And then I abandoned the series because it was too hard to make a series of shiurim in 5 minutes like that fit in. But there's a lot of shiurim with all the sources on explaining the phrase Baruch Atah Hashem Elokeinu Melech HaOlam, if you're interested in that. And they're all 5 minutes. Okay, so now we're going to list questions and problems, okay? And as we usually do, we're going to get all the questions out here, even if we're not going to end up answering them, major, minor, dumb questions, smart questions. Let's just get it all out here.
So I have a question and then a theory about the question, but I'll wait because I want to develop it, obviously.
Okay, sure.
The question is, when I originally heard you first say, like, where did you come from? Where did you go? I was assuming he would use Bereshis, we come from Adam and then we go to Olam Haba, hopefully.
Yeah.
Didn't go that route, especially with the second half. So it's really kind of a bookend of physicality, whereas I thought it was going to be physicality and then spirituality.
Okay.
So why do that?
Okay. So this is an interesting observation, okay, which is that and I don't know, we should convert this into a question just so we have it down. I don't know how to formulate the question. The where did you come from is talking about physicality. Where are you going is physicality. And then who are you going to give reckoning before? That's in Olam Haba, right? Or that's after death, right? So that's your point, Rifki, right? It's, so it is weird. Why are we even talking about the physicality when that's not the essence of who we are anyway? It's not the most powerful question, but I'm saying once you see that we're in the framework of giving reckoning before God, that's talking about the soul, and I don't know, maybe say I don't know. And again, Rifki, I don't know if this is part of your question. What could it have said for Me'ayin Basa? It could have said Elokai hanashama shenasata bi tori ata barasa ata yitzarta ata nafachta bi. Could have talked about the soul, right? And where are you going? Well, your soul is going to exit your body, and then your soul is going to go before God. It could have been described in terms of the journey of the soul, and it would have been talking about the same entity. But here it's talking about the body, and then the soul. So how do we want to formulate that as a question?
Which you is it talking about?
Okay, that's a good way to put it.
Yeah.
Or let's put it this way. Okay, let me start by noting the fact, right? So the first two clauses refer to the body, but the third refers to the soul. Why not be consistent and focus on the important part, the soul? Yeah, Dina?
So this is actually like a question of the book.
Okay, hold on just a second. First of all, is this are we good with this question, or is there a better way to ask it? Rivki, does this capture what you were wanting to ask?
Yes and no. I think that it does, because I was like working based off of the theory, because that's what it was a very like fast train of thought. But I think that part of it that I would want to focus on also is not necessarily why does it not focus on the soul, because I can understand like the reasoning behind why you would speak about the body and then the soul last. I think I was thinking more in the middle clause of like, why are we talking specifically about going back to maggots and dust when like at the end of the day, that's kind of like lost, I feel like, because at the end you're talking about the soul. So it was just, I guess it does encapsulate it, just not as specific.
Okay. All right. That's good then. Okay. Yeah. Dina. So when you said on the puzzle, you meant the Mishnah?
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, that's good.
So I was actually gonna say something like, it says from a putrid drop, and then it says like going to like a place of dirt, maggots and worms. Like I feel like that's a double negative right there. Like it's a sandwich of negative. Like it's putrid drop, that's bad, and then it's like dirt, maggots, and worms, all bad.
Okay, good. So that's good sensitivity to the tone, right? So I'm gonna split this into a question, okay? Which I actually asked on a group that I belong to, and people were divided about the answer. So what is the implication of tipa and then srucha? Okay. Hold on. Meaning putrid drop. Okay. And there are two possibilities. Okay. One is what Dina mentioned, is putrid, and I'm going to write the other part of your question also, is putrid just a negative word which is designed to make you go ew? Or what would the other possibility be, do you think, that it says that it says srucha? Srucha, by the way, literally means spoiled, or like sirchon is like rot or spoilage.
It could be that it's a spoiled seed, like I think you're on the right track. It could be just like a spoiled seed. Oh, sorry, my baby just woke up.
Okay, so or is it a clinical description of the drop?
Yeah, like it could have been like a dead seed to begin with.
Yeah. Okay, good. Right. In other words, and I personally didn't know enough about Chazal's conception, no pun intended, conception of like of how reproduction works to know, like, did they hold that like there's sirchon involved in like conceiving of a fetus? I just didn't know. So I think let's have this as a question, and then, but I'm going to make Dina's question the broader one here also, which is why is the second clause why are the first two clauses so negative? Okay, like what does that teach us? Okay, it could just be neutral. Yeah, Vanessa, sorry, did you have a question?
I think the third thing covers it. Like if the whole point of Pirkei Avos is for like us to work on our midot and to like be encouraged and work on ourselves and do all these things and like to not transgress, and also like the idea of not transgressing is so that you can do mitzvot and whatever. Why just depress us? Because you read this Mishnah, and if you read only this Mishnah, you just want to sit there and do nothing.
Yeah. Okay. All right. That's a good question. So I'm gonna lump that into. Do I want to put this here, or make it a separate question? Well,
I
I'll put it
felt
as a
like it
sub
was-
question. Yeah.
I was gonna say, I think the third one covers it, but go ahead.
Okay. I was gonna say like okay. When I ask my final question, I think it'll express what you're asking in a different angle, and then we'll cover it through both of them. Okay. Other questions? Yeah, Ayala.
I was just gonna say, what is the relationship? Like, how will keeping these things in mind not lead you to sin?
Okay, major question here. Okay, and I'm gonna put this in bold because it's a major question, is how does the contemplation of these three things prevent you from sinning? Okay, that is, if we don't answer that question, then we have not gained the idea from the Mishnah. Okay, Leah.
Yeah, so I think my question is why they ask you to contemplate those three things if they're just going to answer it at the second half of the Mishnah about what you should contemplate. Because if the purpose of contemplation is to lead you to like change or refine your character, and they're giving you the next step, what are you gaining by that? And then you can just start the Mishnah from the second step.
Okay, yeah. So question is a stylistic question, which is why state the three things and then explain them? Why not just like have the second part, right? Just tell you straight out. Yeah. Okay, that is a stylistic question. Which is still a good question, but it is unusual because remember, Mishnayos don't tend to waste words, so that sounds a little word wasty. Yeah, Alex.
Potentially, you could ask why the word contemplate specifically. Why not remember this or know this?
Okay, so I'm gonna actually. Okay, ooh, funny you should mention this. Okay, so I'm gonna ask the question, and this is a major question. Okay, practically speaking, how do we do this? Okay, so what does mistakel mean? How does one engage in this histaklus? Like how often? What context? Like, am I supposed to just like take like, I don't know, pictures of worms and maggots and like a picture of like a Photoshop of me, like, being eaten by them, Oh, did I? Okay. I don't know if anyone here was here or listened to my shiur. We, if this is sounding familiar to anyone, last year I gave a several part shiur on humility, and it talked about this this one clause of like, you're going to a place of worms and maggots, and I had this great idea for an app, like, how like they have like, filters, right? It would be called like, I don't know what the app would be called, but it would be one that makes it like shows you what you're like as a corpse. And I feel like people who are like into like scary movies and like Halloween stuff would love it, but then Jews would use it in order to like fulfill this Mishnah, and you would literally be mistakel, like you'd be gazing at yourself, but like as a corpse, and it would remind you of that. So if anyone knows app developers, then go ahead and like give me royalties when you develop this app. Okay. So the question is what does mistakel mean? But I'm just drawing more out of that question. How do we do this? Like, how do we do this? Okay, good. That's another major question. What else?
I have two things.
Sure.
One is just more minor. So, and it's a general question, like what is the difference between judgment and reckoning, and like why are they bad? So that's one question. And then the other question is, and we also like asked this right about the negativity, but it's just really bothering me because I was reading the end of the Mishnah, and it really is obviously like, lauding Hashem. And it just really describes humans as, and not even in an egotistical way, as a person. Like, I know that we can be very bad, but just like as a creation of Hashem, like just to further that question, why would it be described so negatively? Because it is one of his greatest creations. So it's just like you're lauding Hashem, but then you're also saying one of his creations is like, disgusting and bad and all of these different things.
Okay, good. Isn't this degrading Hashem's creation? Yeah. I forgot, by the way, when Alex asked her a question and said, why does it say gaze or contemplate and not remember? Hold on, let me share the whole screen. I said, ooh, interesting you use that word, because if you go to Koheles, I will show you, and this is going to also explain why this is relevant to tshuva. Okay. It's easier if I go this way. Okay, if you look at Koheles, the beginning of the last chapter, and I think Chazal say this, but I'm gonna just get it from Rashi. So it says, "Uzuchor es borecha bimei bechurosecha ad asher lo yavou yemei hara'a v'higiu shanim asher tomar ein li bahem chayfetz." Remember your Creator in the days of your youth, before the days of evil come, and the years arrive about which you will say, "I have no desire in them." Okay, plain shot, that's talking about old age. Okay, but look at Rashi quoting Chazal. He says, Uzchoras borecha, remember your Creator. Taman taninan, there it is taught, and it quotes our Mishnah. Akavya ben Mahalalel omer, he's talking about b'shlosh d'varim v'chulei. So it quotes the whole Mishnah. Umi mikra zed darash, and they darshan it from this pasuk. Okay, how so? Uzchor es borecha. Hold on. Yeah, Zchor es borecha. Remember your Creator. Shetitin din v'cheshbon lefanav, who you're going to give judgment and accounting in front of. Uzchor es be'erecha. Okay, you know how like midrashim sometimes like mess around with the letters of the word. So remember it swaps resh and aleph. Remember your wellspring. Okay, be'er shenavata mimakora, the well from which you flowed. V'hi tipa srucha shaloven, which is a white drop of semen. Uzchor borecha, and remember your pit. Kivrecha makom afar rima v'salea, which is your grave, the place of dirt, worms, and maggots. And Chazal say that this is about teshuva. Okay, like if you look in the Rambam Hilchos Teshuva, he says that, hold on, he quotes our pasuk also in his definition of tshuva gemura in Sefer Hamada, Hilchos Teshuva, chapter 2, halacha aleph. Okay, you know what? This is going to lead us on a whole tangent. Just take my word for it right now. I don't want to take up extra time with this. That he says that pasuk of remember your Creator in the days of your youth is talking about doing tshuva while you're still young. And so as a side question here, I don't even know if I'm going to list this as a question, but the question is that remembering your Creator in Koheles, which is about tshuva, is attached to this Mishnah. So if we have time next time, I would like to try to connect this back to Koheles, but that's a secondary thing. Okay, any other questions?
I was wondering, I don't know if this is like such a big question, but Avera, is that like literally like a lotase, or is it like
okay, good question.
Midos, or like
okay, good. So so what Ayala is asking here is, in this context, what does Avera mean? Okay, like halachic violation, bad midos, bad decisions. And the reason I think why you're asking it, if I know correctly, is of the technical definition of Avera is like means transgression, which means violating of a law. But like, is this just to stop you from violating halacha, and the whole Mishnah is focused on halacha, or is this like, bad midos in general, or beyond that? That's a good question. Yeah. And there are certain words, by the way, like avon means iniquity. Avon is used much more broadly. Avera usually, in my experience, means like a violation of halacha. Yeah. By the way, Vanessa, when I said that your question is going to be addressed at the end, I meant the question that Alex ended up asking earlier, which is practically how do we do this? And so I'm going to tack on this question. What effect are these rich descriptions supposed to have on us? In other words, I think it's a rich emotional description for a purpose. Obviously, there's ideas there, but I think like it's supposed to have a certain impact. So I think that's part of that question. So between 6 and 3, I think we covered what you were asking. Yeah. Okay.
Yep. Thank you.
Yep. Okay. Any other questions? I have 2 more. Okay. One minor and one major. The minor one is, why is God characterized as Melech Malchei HaMalachim? I'm going to make up an acronym here. HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Okay. Like, there are other ways that you could say this. Like, I don't know. Hamelech HaMishpat, right? Or Dayan HaEmes, something like that, right? So this is a minor question, but I think the reason why it is more prominent in my mind is I don't know if this is a well-known thing. As far as I know, and feel free anyone here or anyone who's listening to this to correct me, I'm pretty sure HaKadosh Baruch Hu is a rabbinic name of God, and I'm pretty sure Melech Malchei Amlachim is a rabbinic name of God. There are psukim that describe God as Kadosh, obviously, and there are psukim that describe God as Melech and ruling over other kings, maybe. But I think Melech Malchei Amlachim, I think, is from Chazal, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu is from Chazal. So these are like Chazal names of God. So like whenever Chazal use one of their own names, it's like, why don't we use the other names that already exist? So it's a minor question, but I think it is one that would be good to answer. The major question is like this. I'll ask you I'll write it and then, all right, whatever. Okay. Are all three avenues of contemplation, sorry, no, that's not the best way to say it. Does this only work if you contemplate all three in conjunction with each other? Or is each one an avenue of contemplation that can prevent Avera? Okay. So in other words, like, do you need all three, or can you prevent Avera with like one of them? And I think I made an episode of the Stoic Jew podcast that quoted this in like within the last couple of months, where I noted that there was a Marcus Aurelius meditation where he had two of them, but he did not have the third one. And I don't think I answered the question on the podcast, but I was like, it seems like you could get really far with the first two, So what exactly does the third one add? Okay, so I think these are the major questions. Okay. Now I'm going to give you a choice. We have exactly 10 minutes. All right. And we're not going to take an official vote. Whoever just like somehow registers their opinion, I'll just like, get that. Do you guys want to share your own ideas now, or should I make the first move, and then we could let the move percolate and then think about it next time? By move, I mean reading the Rambam's commentary. So you want to do commentary or our own ideas for the last 10 minutes? I'm fine either way.
I would want to think like of our own.
Okay, sure. That's one vote. Anyone have any objections? Okay, let's think of our own. Okay, good. So what do you guys say? I don't think I'm going to be able to fit all these on the screen, but I will do my best. No, that is not going to work. Okay. So I'm going to here's what I'll do. I'll copy and paste the questions into the chat, and then I will keep the text on the screen. Paste. Does this not work? Oh, is there a limit? Oh, it's annoying Zoom. Okay, let me do.
Zoom has like a very small character limit.
Okay, so we'll do half and half, and then hope that takes us. Okay, there's the first four, and there's the next four, and then there's the last two. Yeah, Vanessa, what do you want to say? Oh, you're on mute.
I'm wondering if, like, you brought up how on the podcast, I'm not good at keeping all the commentators in my head, how like whether you could just do the first two and leave out the third one. And that wasn't your exact question, but like whatever, that's how I'm categorizing it. I'm wondering, like, also just like the language of like, why are we not calling Hashem like, I don't know, like Elohim or Dayan Hamet, like something harsh to match the tone of the first two clauses?
Yeah.
I'm wondering if maybe like you do need all three, just because like we said, like the first two just depress you, and it's like, okay, if I'm a future drop and if I'm nothing and I'm from nothing and I'm going to nothing, what's the point? The point is like we have a God who like loves us and does good for us, and like that's like we emphasize that with calling him HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Like maybe that's why, I don't know, I'm jumbling this. Like
no. So
you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I get what you're saying, and so I'm gonna jump the gun only because I have not developed my idea yet. I'm not gonna give you a full idea, but I just want to give you a way to think about this. So what Vanessa's saying is, like if you just have the first two, then that's not sufficient. So you need the last one to show that there is like to puncture the Koheles type feeling of like, oh, we're just going to die anyway, right? Oh, I totally forgot a question. Is this the right place to ask it? Just give me 1 second. No, it's not the right place to ask it. Okay, never mind. I'm gonna wait till later on. It's more of a question on the Rambam. Okay, so Vanessa is saying, therefore, you need the third one. I was wondering what would happen if you just had the third one and you didn't have the other two. I'm thinking that there might also be some sort of distortion if you just thought about the fact that God is going to judge you and you didn't go through like this thinking about like your disgusting origins and disgusting destination. And what I'm wondering is if like therefore like the clauses 1 and 2 complement 3 and they work together. 1 and 2 clearly like seem connected, and this might also address the whole physicality spirituality thing. So then that's not a full idea, just an approach to think about it.
I think I had a thought and it left my head.
Okay.
I had a full response and it just completely left. I think
that happens.
We're talking about Hashem.
How you need both of them.
I think if you only had the third one, then like the whole thing that's what happens during all of Elul, right? Like, okay, teshuvah.
Yeah.
But like if you're just doing teshuvah and you don't know what you're doing teshuvah on, then okay, whatever. But if you're remembering like, hey, you're like this really physical human, like you're not just a neshama, you're like a neshama trapped in a body who's like sinned a lot.
Yeah.
And like from the minute you've been born, you've been sinning, and like, you know, we're not to take a Christian lens on it, but like you have all these things, and if you're contemplating it from like the moment of birth to the moment of death, you're really forced to like physically remember all the stuff you've gone through, and to like, you know, that's like I guess the first two are necessary for the third one, just to like prompt an actual method of thinking of what happens when you see Hashem, instead of just like, you know, we're naturally egotistical, like, yeah, of course I'm a neshama, like why would I be scared to meet God? That sounds so great.
Okay, I like that approach. So in other words, you need the contextualizing of like the limit, the limitedness of your physicality in order to properly do this recognition of din cheshbon. The question is like, how does that work through these specific ideas, right? Of like the tipa srucha and this disgusting dirt, maggots and worms. But I think that's a good first step, and then this is now gonna like gives us direction for how to think about those first two. So that is good. Rivki.
Yeah, so on that, I was thinking like, okay, why these 3 things? Because I feel like you can really categorize so many things to think about in order to results. But then I was like, after that whole conversation, like, I don't know if that's necessarily true, because the first thing about coming from that putrid drop is literally covering your birth, your conception. And then the last thing is literally dying. So it's your physical death.
From cradle to grave, as they say.
What'd you say?
From cradle to grave.
Exactly. So it literally encompasses everything. And I think not just about the imagery, but I think it's also about making you realize that, like, especially if we're thinking about like Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, that you're not really just supposed to be thinking about like now, like at this point here and now, you're really supposed to be thinking about yourself as a person that exists throughout time and space, and you from when you until you from when you're there. And it's really like a holistic way of thinking of, okay, like, you know, I was once at this point and like, where do I want to go? Especially focusing on more of the negative things and like, what could you revise and get better at? And then obviously the third half, you know, speaks for itself.
Yeah. Okay, good. So in other words, it is not just the physicality, but it's the finitude in time and looking at the context of your entire life and saying like, what am I doing with my whole life? Yeah. Okay, that's good. Yeah. Dina?
So I want to build on what Rifki said. Like, I feel like she's onto something there, but I also feel like at the end, we have to remember that, like, especially during this time, that we actually call, I think we say that Hashem is king during this time. Like, it's something that we heavily like think about and stuff. So like, you know, just to remember that like you are kind of like nothing without him. You were nothing when you were born, and you're nothing when you're dead. And you wouldn't be anything without him, like the transcendent one. Like he's the one who brought you here, and he's the one who will take you away at the end of the day.
Okay, that's good. So this is the both Melech Malchim Lachim and Hakadosh Baruch Hu, transcendent one, emphasize God's exaltedness over our lowliness, whereas an idea of just judge or something like that would not necessarily emphasize the gap. Yeah. Yeah, Vanessa?
I just got excited by that. So I really like that connection between like Melech Malchim Malchim and like Rosh Hashanah, like whatever, like this time of year. And maybe that's why we're using such like gross, like upsetting, whatever you want to call it, language in the first two clauses. Maybe like that's the whole thing of teshuvah, right? Like it's returning and elevating yourself. Like maybe that imagery is just to show you like this is where you started from, and like this is like no matter what time in your life, like this is what you're working with, and like see how are you actually making yourself more than a putrid drop and like something that worms are
Okay,
gonna
that's a humbling question. Yeah, that's pretty good. Okay. I think these are all good approaches. I'm gonna wrap it up now. Just Alex, one more comment, and I gotta wrap it up and literally stop before 9. Yeah.
I was just thinking about how the first two clauses themselves are such negative things, but like within the negative, there's also like positive. Like from a future drop, it's like it ends with saying like God is the source of all good, but it's like with a future drop, that there's this idea of like pura review and like, oh no, there are like good things within this. There's life that's being created, and even within death, it's not necessarily like a bad thing because you're going to Shemaim. You're no longer stuck in the physical.
Yeah.
So like within these two negative things, it's just interesting to me that the last clause is a positive one, and you can like take the like God of all, like who creates like a source of good things. And then like the first two, if you contemplate them, you could say like, oh no, there's even good within this bad stuff.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, that's definitely good. And it definitely does elevate the negative, and by showing that, but what do you get out of this? You get a soul who's like relating to the source of all good. Okay. I ordinarily I'm fine going overtime. I have to stop because the next year is going to start and we need the Zoom account, but let's think about this between now and next Thursday, and hopefully see you all there. Thanks for coming, and looking forward to this year. So
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Have a good
Bye.
Bye.